My name is Richard Ferrer, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family. I'm Cloud Hired.
So I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired. Because of Google Architect program, I am cloud hired. See!
I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the Glowcloud team.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Michael Gibbs. I'm here with Alonzo Coleman, and we're here today to help you build your IT architect career. Maybe your goal is to become a cloud architect, or your goal is to become an AI architect, or your goal is to become an enterprise architect. Whatever the case may be, we are here to help you with your career goals. I've been an IT architect now for over 25 years, network architect, which I loved, cloud architect, which I loved, enterprise architect, which I truly loved. I love them all, honestly. Business architect, which I've loved. And I spent more than 2 decades helping people just like you get your first tech job or get promoted in tech, land that first architect job. And I've got graduates that work at AWS, Apple, Cisco, IBM, Microsoft, Google, Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini, PricewaterhouseCoopers, JP Morgan Chase Bank, Barclays Bank, pretty much anybody that matters, IBM, and I want to help you build your career. And that's why we're here. See, when I started, I didn't know where to go until I got some career guidance. And it made my career take off like a rocket ship, because instead of just learning and making mistakes and making a mistake and learning from that mistake, I didn't need to make the mistakes because I was guided by experts. And that's why we're here, Alonzo and I, to assist you with your career. So Alonzo is also a great cloud architect. He's got a big background in cloud. He's got a huge background in marketing. And when you're changing jobs and building your career, building your brand and marketing is just so important. And the two of us are here to help you. Before we begin, let me tell you about a couple of free, exciting things to build your career. Tomorrow, we have our How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. In this webinar, we will go over the cloud architect role, which I promise you is different than you probably think it is. We'll go over what we do, the most critical skills to become a great cloud architect. We'll cover everything. And it's going to be free, and it's going to be on Zoom. You get to speak with me and a few members of our team. You can ask questions. We'll do anything we can to help you get your first cloud architect job. And I'm going to tell you, starting Friday, we're going to get fun. We are going to have a free AWS Advanced Networking Bootcamp, and we are going to have an incredible amount of time with it. I have 3 Cisco certified internet experts to help you, as well as a Cisco certified network professional. The team teaching this AWS Advanced Networking course has over 60 years networking experience. So we're going to be able to get real deep, and at the same time, we're going to make it real simple for you, because when you're an expert, you can explain concepts very simply. So we're going to have some fun. So what would I love you to do today? Ask your questions so we can assist you in building your architecture career. Give us an ask. And keep that in the back of your mind. So, Alonzo, you want to say a few words?
Always, Mike. Well, it's always glad to see everyone here. We've got our regular question, people that come in, and there's even new people as well from all over the world. And I'm excited always to get a chance to interact with you all. Like Mike said, I spend a lot of time in cloud architecture. I'm always studying, I'm always learning and growing. But a bulk of my career was also focused on marketing. So my task for you all as you come into this development program is to strengthen both your in-person and online presence. We want to make sure you have all the skills necessary to be a strong, competent, capable architect who knows how to effectively communicate with business leaders. We focus on how the tech is focused on the business and not the other way around. So I'm looking forward to answering your questions as well. Cloud Doctor, I think I remember you. Hello, everyone. How do cloud architects get their positions? Do they start from cloud engineering or tech support, for example? Do they do internships to learn from established architects?
Cloud Doctor, let's go over this. There's really two ways people become cloud architects. One is they train to be a cloud architect, and the first job they get is a cloud architect. The other is someone goes and works as an admin for 5 or 10 years. After that, they may become an engineer. After that, they go get architect training and become a cloud architect. So, there's no set rule. I can give you some examples, and I'll give you why. I don't like hard set rules. What an architect does and what an engineer does, they're nothing related to each other. I mean, they're no more different than a person flying an airplane and the flight attendant that's keeping you safe in the plane. You're both working on the plane. See, the architect designs solutions to optimize the client's business performance, and the engineer actually builds systems. So you can spend your entire life building systems, and you're never going to know how to design them. And I like to show this to people all the time, but they feel that by building systems, they're going to get them to design. So let me give you a quick example of why building will not teach you to design and why you can become an architect first. But actually, let me give you some architect examples, and then I'll get to that. I can think of a young man. His name was Romanek Ivan Tambi. He was from Cameroon. By the time he was 24 years old, we got him hired at AWS, and his last job before that was a waiter, and his first job, obviously, was a solution architect. While we're at it, Coyote, same thing, hired by AWS as a solution architect as his first job. Tech job, Jordan Kedatil, first tech job at AWS as a solution architect. Richard Ferrara, for example, we got him his first job at MUFG Bank as a solutions architect right after our training. It was his first tech job ever. And Jeffrey West, for example, was a geologist. And we got him his first job as a cloud architect at Calian. Or Lenny Burnett, who was a video editor, his first job as a solution architect. Or Del Ribat, who came from ambulances, as a first job as solutions architect. Or Daniel Boso, who I love this kid. He was a high school dropout, but we got him hired as a solution architect over at JP Morgan Chase. Or Balwinder Kerr, who was a stay-at-home mom before we got her hired at Microsoft. Or Jermaine Houghton, who was selling landscaping gear, who got his first enterprise architect job at Southern New Hampshire University after our training. Or Jennifer Ema, who was a mental health tech hired by JP Morgan Chase. I could give you examples all day. But I also have people like Harsha, who came to me with 10 years cloud engineering experience. We trained him, and a year later, he's working as a cloud architect. Or Pritapal St. John, I think there's a video of him on our YouTube channel. He'd been working as a developer for about 20 years, and then we trained him when we got him his first enterprise architect job. So the key is, it doesn't matter where you start. It matters what skills you have. So what do hiring managers care about, Cloud Doctor? Your ability to do the job and do it well. Whether they can trust you, your communication skills, your energy, your enthusiasm, your passion for the role, your willingness to go above and beyond, and how great of a team player you are. So Cloud Doctor, that's what the hiring managers care about. Now, you can't learn architecture by doing labs. And this is why I retrain people who have taken everybody else's boot camp. They've done a year's worth of building labs, and you ask them a simple architecture question, and they can't answer it. So I'll give you a little basic networking example of why all the engineering in the world won't teach you anything about architecture. So Cloud Doctor, I'm going to teach you how to take a bare metal server. Then I'm going to teach you, we're going to put Ubuntu Linux on it. Then I'm going to teach you how to add the Apache web server. I think we add sudo apt-install HTTPD, or is it Apache? I can't remember. I haven't touched Linux in 20-some years because I'm an architect and we don't touch the tech. But it's something just like that. And then after that, I'll teach you how to manually assign an IP address on that Linux server. Now, you know what I'm going to do, Cloud Doctor? I'm going to then take 4 Cisco switches, big layer 3 switches. We're going to cable them up together. We're going to configure them. I'll tell you to go say config T, init face, gigabit 0/0, IP address, no shut. We'll do that all in all those links that we have in between these switches. Or they'll probably be 10 gig versus gigabit Ethernet, but whatever. And then we'll put them all into OSPF, router OSPF1, network 0.0.0.255.255.255.0, area 0. Guess what? Everything's going to run. We got our server in there. It'll be accessed by anybody in the interior protocol. The routing's all set up. But you know what I didn't teach you, Cloud Doctor? Any of the architecture things. Like, what should that CPU, what should that server be? How many cores do we need in that CPU? Do we need higher single core performance or higher multi-core performance based upon that application and the way we're running there? Meaning, do I need higher frequencies or do I need more cores? It doesn't teach me about how the level 1, level 2, level 3 cache in there is going to impact the server under various loads when we do our CPU sizing for that server. And it won't teach us what kind of storage performance we need. Now, it won't tell us whether we need 1 network card in that server versus 2 network cards in that server versus 3. Should we be connected to different switches on different VLANs? Should we be connected in the same VLAN? And there's approaches and strengths and weaknesses for each one. Now, on the connection to the server, what kind of connection? Do we use a copper port? Do we use a single mode fiber port? Do we use a multi-mode fiber port? Now we're getting to the switches. How many power supplies do the switches need? How many control modules do we need? How many line cards should we put our cables on? Again, do we use single mode, multi-mode, or copper ports? Now, what does the backplane of that switch look like? How does that switch move packets around, and where's the latency involved? And you see, Cloud Doctor, I could go on for about 50 more minutes of the things that we need to consider and not even scratch the surface. See, as the architect, it's how the technology works and how we put the pieces together for maximum performance. You do 1,001 cloud engineering projects, and you're going to be a great cloud engineer. You're going to know how to install that stuff on the server, and you will. You'll know how to configure all that cool stuff, and you will. You'll know how to build it, but it won't teach you any of the questions that I just asked you or talked about. So that's why architects need to learn architecture and engineers need to learn engineering. And that's why nobody hires a construction worker and says design the Burj Al Arab for me, or design the next airport for me, or the next shopping mall. They hire an architect to build it and a construction crew or builders to go build it. Hope I answered you. But I can tell you, we get people hired every day, Cloud Doctor, and their first job is an architect.
Hey guys, from Big Jerry. Hey guys, can you talk about the upcoming boot camp a little bit? Is that similar to the career development program at all?
So Big Jerry, there's honestly no relationship between what we do in certification versus what we do in our career development program. All of our career development programs, whether they be the Enterprise Architect Career Development Program, the Cloud Architect Career Development Program, or the AI Career Development Program, teach you how to become an architect. So an architect is about learning the vision from the client, and that's a lot that you need to know to learn there, meaning you have to develop business acumen, leadership skills, and CXO relevancy to get that. An architect themselves will then go and evaluate all the organization's business processes, meaning, are they operating properly? How does the manufacturing occur? How does sales occur? How are the customers serviced? These are just an example of some of the business processes. And then the architect is going to have to understand how to re-architect those business processes, which is going to take a lot about knowledge in business process re-engineering, and it's also going to take a lot of knowledge in business. So of course, we teach this in our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, on all of our career development programs, because you can't do the job without it. Now, the next thing we do as architects is we have to build a team of engineers to go design this solution. And part of that is bringing in some engineers to baseline the current technology. Part of that is building the architecture team, which will include architects and engineers of all kinds. We're going to have to then create a new design, typically with a team of 10 to 50 people to design the system. And we're going to have to then go back, we're going to have to document the design, present that design, and then go back to the clients. After we created the design, and the design is not the tech, that's the easy part. The design is to support the new business goals, business visions, for example. Kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So it's to support the new vision of the business, not the tech. Then we need to document that architecture. We need to present that architecture. We need to negotiate with stakeholders all across the organization, as one part of that will affect another part of that. And by doing so, we can make sure the architecture is going to drive transformation. Unlike 70% of the architectures out there, which hurt the business, we want to help the business. Then we need to find a governance strategy. Then we need to get people on board. We need to develop change control strategies. We need to sell it. We need to negotiate the deal, and then we go to a new client. So in our career development program, we teach all of it. We teach the underlying technologies, the networking, the data center, and the cloud. We teach our clients how to design the architectures to drive digital transformation. We teach them how to design high security, extremely high availability, high performance things. And that's what we do as architects. Our certification bootcamp is designed to help you pass the certification, and we'll do a great job of it. But what is a certification? The name of a service and how to configure that service, which is really what cloud engineers do or cloud admins do. But that's okay. To make it really good for the cloud architects, we're going to also include some information about networking. And we do love the AWS Advanced Networking. It is a wonderful intro to networking course, especially for people that work in cloud networking. And with our team of 3 CCIEs and a CCNP, it's going to be fun, fun, fun.
Cloud Doctor again, what is the process of design, present, and sell? Is it a single person that does this, Michael?
So Cloud Doctor, typically it's going to be a team that's involved in an architecture. And here's the reason why. Organizations are very complex, especially at the enterprise level, which is typically who pays a cloud architect or an enterprise architect or an AI architect. If it's a 5-person company, they don't need an architect. So the architect, because we're typically involved in big businesses, we have to understand that big businesses are very dynamic. Now, I'm going to tell you the way we're supposed to do it as cloud architects. Now, this is not like you would be learning in one of the cloud providers' well-architected frameworks, which teaches you just how to put the technology together. The process is this. We need to understand our client's business needs. And quite frankly, Cloud Doctor, that could be 3 to 6 months of meetings or a year of meetings with the client long before we're even ready for an architecture. So if you're one of these good architects that's working at an IBM or a Microsoft or a Cisco, they could be meeting with their client on and off for a year, even before an RFP comes out for an architecture or a change. So lots of time with the client, lots of learning the business, lots of learning that business's goals, business pain points, business challenges, lots of understanding how that organization operates, how the people do their jobs, what the customers are saying, what the customer experience is. All of that comes first, because if we try to with technology without understanding that, then we break it. Then after that, we need to learn the type of technology the organization has. And it doesn't matter whether it's cloud or it's data center, pretty much the same technology anyway. But we have to understand that organization's technology. And then we have to evaluate it, what's working and what's not. If the technology is working, we don't change it. If it's helping them a lot, but we could use more capacity, we add more capacity. If the company wants to do something different, we then evaluate which types of new technologies may get that business to its goals. So we evaluate the current technology, we evaluate the goals, and then we design a new technology architecture to support the new business architecture, which is the business processes to support the business goals. Now, when we do that design the technology, this is where the team comes into play. This is where you leave your client site, you go back to your company, you go to your management team and say, for this billion-dollar architecture, and I only work on billion-dollar type architectures, but for this billion-dollar architecture, I'm going to need a cloud network architect, 2 cloud security architects because there's high security, an IAM architect, a big data architect, a data scientist, an AI architect. I'm also going to need some DevOps engineers, some application architects, and even a DevOps architect that would set up DevOps pipelines, or at least design these pipelines. And I'm going to need them to help me do this. Now you're going to go back to your customer, your employer, and you're going to build a business case why you need all these expensive people to work with you for the next 6 months to a year. Then you're going to come up with a beautiful architecture. You're going to go back to your client site. You're going to have many discussions. You're probably going to buy them many lunches, dinners, and drinks. You're going to go back and forth. Then they're going to give you some feedback. You're going to tune your architecture. And when that's done, you're going to go in there, the account executive, you potentially will bring in some heavy hitters like the VP of sales. You'll go sell that thing, negotiate the deal, and we'll go off to the new client. And the wonderful cloud engineers and DevOps engineers will build it. and we'll go off to the new client. Thankfully, we don't have to touch the technology in our job at all. We get to keep our hands clean, but we get to meet a lot of people. We get to have a lot of conversations. We get to travel to wonderful parts of the world. And I think it's the best job in the world. But no, nothing ever big is ever accomplished by a single person.
Agreed, Mike. There's a lot of moving parts there. And that's all the more reason why you're going to be the emotional glue, if you will, with lots of emotional intelligence, because you're going to be speaking with a lot of key players, and they're going to be looking at the value based off of their perspective and what they value. So you got to meet them where they are, showcase how important or what opportunities there are with this architecture, and be able to convince them. It's going to be a lot of shaking hands, kissing babies, if you will. But overall, you really have to understand the nuance of the people, and then you're going to understand the nuance of the business as well. They go hand in hand. Hera Cross, how do you stay disciplined and focused? Do you have any daily routines to help you stay on track?
Hera, yes, I keep a very rigid routine. See, I have a lot of things that I have to do, and I want to be sure that I get them. So I have a routine. You asked, I'll give it to you. First thing I do is somewhere around 7:30 in the morning, my cat licks me on the cheek, and she wakes me up. And then I play with her for about 5 minutes. I give her her shrimp, her tuna, she eats it, and then she goes out and play. At that point, I eat breakfast, and I can tell you every single day, it's slow cooked oatmeal with 50 grams of egg protein powder with 12 almonds in it and a cup of blueberries. I then either practice yoga or I go to physical therapy for my foot and take care of that. But as soon as I come back, I get back to work, and I work, and I work, and I work some more. And then I have lunch at my desk, which is typically a pound of vegetables and a half a pound of fish or chicken, and typically some nuts and some fruit. And then I work, and I work some more, and I work some more until about 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And then I have dinner, which is a pound of vegetables, typically chicken, fish, or some form of lean meat, and some fruit. And I typically do a little bit of evening yoga. I watch TV with my wife for about an hour, and then I go to sleep, and I do it again the next day. And for the most part, I've followed that routine almost every day now for a very long time. And for me, I feel good inside of my routine. I found that I'd love to get Alonzo's perspective that if you have something that works for you, do more of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that if I eat right, I feel healthy. I know that if I start with either my yoga in the morning, which is what I really like to do, or the physical therapy for my foot, my ankle, my back, my shoulder. Don't do martial arts for 30 years in your youth. I promise you'll have lots of effects that you'll need to do physical therapy for. But, there's that. The Olympic weightlifting didn't help either. But, that is what it is. So, and I follow that. And by having the routine, it's just there. But I will tell you, Hera, I learned one thing when I was younger. When I was in high school, I used to worry about doing my homework, and I hated it so much. I hated high school. So it was like, do your homework. And I would wait till it was like 8, 9 o'clock at night, and then I would do it. And in between 3 or 4, when I got done school till 9 o'clock at night, I was stressed the whole time. And I spent some time with some Marines, and they said, instead of being stressed about what you have to do, conquer it, and then relax for the rest of your evening. So I learned as soon as I had something to do, instead of being stressed about worrying about it, I just did it, and that relieved things on my mind. And I always feel good when I accomplish something. I love to accomplish things, and I try to every day. Starting with making your bed in the morning, like the warriors that my Marine Corps family kind of taught me to do. How about you, Alonzo?
Couldn't agree more. When I think about when Harris says, how do you stay disciplined? And folks, and discipline, a lack of discipline means procrastination, a reluctance to want to get into something. So let's talk about what your goals are. Where do you want to be? And map out from the end all the way to the beginning how you want to get there. That creates interest, that creates drive for you to want to complete your goals. So figure out what you want to do and start on that path. Every journey begins with a single step. So figure that out, find out what your goals are. So for me, I get up at about 5:45, 6, go to the gym on Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday. Then I come back. Then I wake my son up. He goes to school virtually. I cook him breakfast. He's got a great meal 5 days a week. Then I start getting into work. Then I start figuring what our daily posts are, what my regimen is for the day. find out what the latest trends are in technology, how I can leverage what's going on in the industry and share with the students. Then we work some more, as Mike said, then we work some more. And then we continually bring that experience your way. And so once I get to a specific point where I want to put a chapter in the book of education of us training and doing what we need to do for you, spend time with my son, spend time with my wife, then I might look at what's going on in the industry with different articles and so forth, so that not only am I edified, but I'm able to pass it along to the students as well. And it's rinse and repeat. So ultimately, my goal is to move the company forward, to be able to help students, be able to edify myself, and be able to provide more of an experience for everyone here. So it takes discipline, it takes focus, so I can get an understanding and remove anything that's distracting. It could be social media, not necessarily distraction, but in sometimes I may get a unexpected honeydew list or a hey dad, request or whatever. So let's map out what's good for you, focus on that goal, stay disciplined along the way, and you'll be able to understand how you can keep track of those daily routines to realize where and who you want to be.
Sounds great. Please ask us your questions so we can help you in your career. Questions on how to become an architect or any kind of technology career you like. You've been doing this for a few decades.
Ashish. Hi, sir. Are labs there in the boot camp? Please include project at the end. Also add assignments after every module.
Ashish, the course is completed. It took 4 people many, many months to create a quality project, and we can't change it at this point because we want to deliver quality. Do we have labs? Yes, we have a lot of labs. We have some AWS labs, and we also had one of our CCIEs really get into a network environment and create a lot of labs, but also explain things. Really going into, the underlying technology, the technology that makes the cloud possible, and walking you through that so you can see what goes on, for example. And it is absolutely fantastic. So there's plenty of labs. But projects, here's the problem. Projects have to be relevant to your career. Meaning, if you're an architect and you build something, that's not going to impress any hiring manager anywhere because it's going to say, thank you, you did somebody else's job. A project for an architect might be designing a solution for a bank to increase their revenue. We're designing a high-frequency trading system for a bank that's based upon AI, and it would include the compute infrastructure, which would probably be a lot of GPUs, but we could, depending upon the way the AI thing is written, you could focus on the CPU, a GPU, a TPU. It would include how the workflow changes. It would include the types of data coming in. It would include the types of data hygiene practices that are needed for necessary. It would include the types of large language models that would be used in the process. It would include the data storage. It would include the network performance. See, that's an architecture project. So when we do things, when we train, we have to do projects that are relevant for our goals. Just doing a project and sticking stuff up together is not exactly learning things. So we have very focused learning assignments, and we have very focused labs to actually show and demonstrate the concepts in AWS. And because you don't get to see enough inside of AWS because it's a cloud and all the underlying technology is hidden from you. And if you don't understand the underlying technology, I don't care what you do, you won't understand anything. We've actually done many different demos that you're going to be able to see what this can explain to you routing. And when you have to send AWS a VLAN and you don't know what it means, we're going to show you VLANs on the switch so you get it. You're not just going to get the AWS. You're going to get also what you need to know. And I am much more focused on you having valuable skills. So when you go on an interview and someone asks you a question, you can answer that question because they're going to ask you the question. I hope that makes sense. We're concerned more about employment and more about your career.
Yeah, we think a offer letter is far more important than a certification.
But you'll easily be able to pass the certification with the training we're giving you. If you've got tech career questions, ask them so we can assist you.
Cloud Station. How can I maximize my potential to become a competent cloud architect?
Cloud Station. First, I want you to come on to How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar on Thursday this week. Inside of this, We will go over the cloud architect role. We will cover the most critical cloud architect skills. We will cover what hiring managers want. We'll talk about skipping HR so you don't get auto-rejected by applying and how you can be signed by the hiring manager anyway, which is really what we want for you to get hired. And we'll go over how you can learn all the most critical things you can learn. We also have written an ebook for you on how to become a cloud architect. That is in the description, and I'll have my team pop it in the chat box, so we'll go there. But how do you maximize your potential in becoming a cloud architect? You get the right skills and the right training. You can come to us and we'll easily get you there at Cloud Station, and we've got a library of successful architects to prove it. We've also been featured in well over 100 major publications, things like Forbes, things like Information Week, Tech Republic, Tech Radar, Data Center Magazine, because of the work we do. So there's that. But how do you get the skills? You need the skills. And what are the skills to be an cloud architect? They're actually network and data center skills. And people say, why network and data center? Well, all the cloud is renting space in somebody else's network and data center. So let's say you want to be an architect and you need to design a solution. If you don't understand the underlying technology, you're not going to be able to understand the solution. So, if you understand virtualization, you understand cloud computing. If you understand what a virtual machine is and you've designed virtual machines in the data center, then whether you go to the cloud in this AWS EC2 instance, an Oracle virtual machine, an Azure virtual machine, or a Google Compute Engine instance, you're going to understand it. If you've been working with block storage and truly understand block storage, object storage, and file storage, it doesn't matter if it's in your Nutanix cloud or your OpenStack cloud, and I promise you most organizations will have one that's connected to their Google Cloud, because object storage is object storage, whether you call it cloud storage, whether you call it S3, or whether you call it Microsoft Blob, it's the same thing. So learn the network and the data center, and the cloud. Then what you need to understand is some security. You need to understand the business applications that can drive organizational performance. And that's your technology. Then you don't need just to know the individual technologies. Then you need to be taught how to put them together. How do you secure a demilitarized zone, for example, for a mission critical web app, versus how would you create it and secure a demilitarized zone for remote access for an enterprise that's got, say, 40,000 employees? Different design. Similar in some ways, but different. How would you create an environment for a bank that needs minimal latency? See, all that stuff is design, which is different than building. So we talked about the technical skills. Now, Cloud Station, you could be the world's greatest techie. And if you can't get the requirements from the client, you're not going to have anything. So that means you're going to need stellar communication skills. You're going to need good leadership skills. You're going to need good sales skills, because we're going to be judged by our ability to sell our solutions to the client. And even if we weren't judged on selling our solutions to the client, if you lead a team of 50 to design a beautiful architecture and no one ever adopts the architecture, all you have is PowerPoint slides and Word documents, and that's no fun. And it drives no transformation. So you're going to need to know how to sell. You're going to need to learn how to ethically influence others. You're going to need to have what's called executive presence, or the ability to be seen and command a room. You're going to need to have what's called CXO relevancy, which is the ability to relate to the C-suite. Because who buys your architecture? It's not engineers. It's not techies. It's the chief information officer, the chief financial officer, and the chief executive officer. And you have to impress them. So there's that. And you're going to need good negotiation skills, because you're going to be there. Now, we're going to be doing a lot of vendor management. You take an AWS certification, you think it's all AWS stuff, but that's not reality. 98% of organizations have 3 clouds. Now we need security. We're not going to be using cloud providers WAF. We're going to be using an enterprise-grade security thing from, say, a Cisco, a Palo Alto, a Fortinet, or a Checkpoint. Now we're going to need some unified communications. So maybe an Avaya or a Cisco is going to pop in there all over again. Now we need a contact center, and it's not going to be the cloud provider's contact center stuff. It's going to be a voice provider's contact center kind of things that are in there. Now we've got some big data applications. And of course, we're going to be dealing with big data providers. We've got some SIEM stuff to correlate our logs, and all this stuff is going to be multi-vendor. So you're going to have to get very good at negotiating with vendors and managing the relationships with vendors. And because in any architecture, it crosses an entire organization. And what's good for sales is probably bad for manufacturing. And what's bad for manufacturing is probably really great for marketing. And what's great for marketing is going to be pretty bad for, let's say, customer support. So you're going to have to get very good at stakeholder management and schmoozing all these people to get them all to agree on the architecture. Because if they don't agree on the architecture, they will fight the architecture, not use the technology, and then your architecture will fail like 70% of architectures do. And that's why our architects are the best, because we teach them this. But that's how you maximize your potential. You get all of the skills you need, all of the business skills, all of the leadership skills, all of the executive skills, and all of those architect skills, which is how the technology works, not how to configure it, how it works at the underlying level. Meaning, what does that hypervisor do? How does that hypervisor manage memory, so to speak? How does that hypervisor, segment the disk? What type of networking cards do we need? What are the limitations between pushing a PCI card, like pushing a GPU into a virtual machine versus using a virtual GPU, because there's differences, or versus like a single root IO virtualization where you push a 100 gig network card into your virtual machine versus using a software-based network card. And when you understand all this, that's the tech piece, and the business piece. Your architectures are amazing, and the jobs you'll receive are incredible. And you'll have a stack of successful clients, and they'll be calling you pretty much on a monthly basis. Mike, are you looking for a new job? Because you made them successful. That's how you do it, Cloud Station. Great question you asked. If you got questions, ask them.
Diggleman, I have set up a meeting with my manager's manager. What types of things should I be talking about, Mike?
Well, Dingleman, first, why did you set up a meeting with your manager's manager? And did you set up a meeting with your manager before you went to your manager's manager? That's the first question I have to ask you. Before I meet with anybody, I want to know what the goals of the meeting are. So Dingleman, what are your goals? Have you spoken to your manager? Before you go meet with anybody, please tell me that. Hopefully, you've got some questions and you can ask them, because we really want to help you. Dingleman, I'd love to hear back from you. Dingleman, I know you. You're super smart, so I'm waiting to hear that. To remind everybody, it's starting tomorrow from 10 to 6, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We are going to have fun. We are going to get really geeky with the AWS Advanced Networking Bootcamp. Got 3 CCIEs teaching this, a CCNP. Everybody together, the instructor team has over 60 years of network architecture experience. And some of them have a lot of the network engineering experience as well, which means they're going to get deeply technical. And we're going to have lots of fun. So come and sign in.
Yeah, Mike and the tech team are very excited about that. From Ade, do you help with resumes?
Ade, absolutely. We teach people how to optimize their resume, optimize their LinkedIn profile, how to interview, how to negotiate a higher salary in all of our architect programs. Because if we didn't, it wouldn't be, we're not going to just create a program as a rule that's just going to be, here's your certification and here, go try to figure out how to find a job, because you won't. So when we create all of our training programs, they have everything from interview skills to salary negotiation skills, to building your brand, to building the right resume, to how to attach to recruiters, to how to get people to come to you so you can get hired without even applying for the jobs in the first place. I don't apply for jobs. My wife applied one time for me for a job, and I got a great job at Cisco that way, but you kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So yes, we help with resumes. We help with everything with our clients to get them hired and to get them paid more.
Diggleman, yes, it did go through my manager. My goal is to position myself as appearing less techie and more executive.
Okay, Dingleman, great. So the question still I have would be why you would be going to your manager's manager for this when they don't know you as opposed to your manager. So you have to have an ask. And the ask one that you really need to have is first, what's your goal? Because you can't tell your manager your goal is to look less techie and more executive. You have to have a goal. Is your goal to move into an architecture role, which would be much more executive and much less techie? Is your goal to move into a management role? Because that, again, is a different goal, and it's a different conversation you need to have. So what is the actual end goal, Dingleman? That's that. Now, I'll tell you how you can immediately look more executive, and less techie. And I actually did it at one of the companies I worked for. One of the companies I worked for had a policy about letting the engineering types move into these super high-end executive architect positions. So what I actually did was, instead of going to work in one of these shirts that I love to wear, and my regular khaki pants and shoes, which were polished only once every 2 weeks, when I swapped it out for Armani suits. I bought a bunch of Armani suits, went to work every day in an Armani suit. Somebody asked me a question, I gave them a business executive answer that I learned in trained business acumen. Mike, can you go build this? I can't. It's not really my specialty, but I can refer you to these two people that can. But you know what I can do for you? I can help design this thing for you. Okay, Mike. Designed it, closed the deal, sold it, took some clients to lunch, had the clients give me good ratings. The next thing I realized, I was viewed as something else. So how do you get viewed as less techie? You do less tech stuff. You don't babble about the tech. You talk about digital transformation versus doing. You show that you show business acumen. When something happens, you can look at it. If there's new tariffs from China coming in, for example, that means inflation has to go up to pay for these new goods if we need to bring goods in from China. With the business acumen, you can predict it. I predict inflation after yesterday's move, for example, with tariffs on China. I also predict China will create their own tariffs, which will make our American goods less exciting in China. But, if you have business acumen, you can look at that. And there'll be everything. For example, you might think, why did Amazon's CEO, the CEO of AWS, get replaced after 3 years? What happened? Why did they have a new one? What happened in the cloud world? Did something go on at Microsoft and Google with regards to gaining a lot of market share that would perhaps make AWS think about something? I don't know. But what happened? And as you start to evaluate information and you start looking at organizations' financial performance, and you start looking in the news and you can filter that through the right amount of business acumen, you'll be able to better advise your clients. Now you're working at your company, and I know where you work, Dingleman, because we trained you and you're super smart. And I know that great company you work at. But now you're seen as the executive. Everybody in the professional world has an opinion. But what's your opinion on? Is your opinion on, ChatGPT is better than Google Gemini or vice versa? I hope that's not it. I hope your opinion is, I don't care which is the better technology. There is no better technology. The best technology is what makes your clients the most successful. That's why mainframe spending is going up. It's not going away, it's going up. Because there's a lot of things that mainframes do very well, especially with high transaction workloads. And they do it better, faster, and cheaper than another technology, even though we don't want to work with it because it's 50 years old. But that's the key, that at least part of it is to be able to speak on a relevant basis. What's going on? What are the market dynamics? What are the macroeconomic forces going on? What are the microeconomic forces going on? What are the geopolitical forces going on? And how would that impact your end client? And when you know that, and you can see trends, you can make better predictions for your clients, and you can make recommendations, and they're going to hear those recommendations, and their economists in these companies are going to be saying, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, these guys from this company, they're pretty sharp, or these gals from this company are pretty sharp. They know how to advise us, so it's there. That's why IBM has done so well. That's why Microsoft has done so well. That's why people go to companies like Cisco, because they have people that understand business, that understand the economy, that understand finance, that understand the enterprise. So there's that. Now, Dingleman, in the company where you work, they've got lots of executive training. And maybe you can ask your manager's manager to let you go into that. But you're going to have to figure out which career you want. Because do you want to move towards sales? I know you could do it. Do you want to move into architecture? I think that's what you want to do. Or do you want to go into people management? They're all a little bit different, and they all would require a little more. People management, less tech. Sales, almost no tech. Architecture, some tech. So, but the business will determine as well. So please ask more questions, Dingleman, but I do want to help you no matter what.
From Ashish. And sir, what day do you conduct Zoom sessions per month, per week, or per month?
So Ashish, I'm not sure what you mean by that. So we have, if you're referring to our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, We have classes on Tuesday at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., Thursday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., and 1 to 3 p.m. live on Zoom. If you're asking about our AI Architect program, which is covered on Zoom, which David Lithicum teaches, he teaches that on Mondays and Wednesdays at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., and then the class joins our leadership training, which is on Friday from 1 to 3 p.m. If you're asking which day we do our How to Get Your First Cloud Job Zoom webinars, that's Thursday from 1 to 3 p.m. We also occasionally do other webinars on Zoom because I'd like to go out there and meet people, which we announce via our email list. So I don't know which Zoom session you're actually referring to. So if you let me know that, I'd love to answer this issue.
Sheesh, and do we need to learn anything before going for the course? Should it be intermediate knowledge in AWS and basics, or is intermediate knowledge in AWS and basics of networking, are they enough?
Ashish, I don't know which course you're referring to. If you're referring to our Cloud Architect program, our AI Architect program, or our Enterprise Architect program, we assume you know nothing, regardless of what you're on, and we teach you from ground zero. And that's why we're very good at taking teachers. We're very good at taking, mental health professionals, waiters and waitresses,
retail
project managers, consultants, sales reps, and turning them into cloud architects. At the same time, we're good at taking people with 20 years of engineering experience and turning them into architects, because engineering and architecture are very different. So we provide ground zero. Now, if you want to take our AWS Advanced Networking, we've had a couple of classes this week there. Last week, we did a subnetting workshop, which you can do tonight, which I recommend. We did a BGP workshop, which we did which I recommend, and they're both free on our YouTube channel. Maybe Tyrone, you can pop the links to those things. Today, I released a YouTube video on software-defined wide area networks. Tomorrow, I'm going to release another one on SASE, Secure Access, Secure Edge, which is combining basically software-defined networking or software-defined WAN with basically zero trust and a couple other cool tools. So it's really kind of fun. So I did that. And I created all these in preparation completely free so we could do our AWS Advanced Networking Bootcamp in 3 days. Of course, we typically won't be able to get through all the labs we've created, and we'll typically allow you to download them for more bonus content because we want to give you a really good experience, but keep it that way. But I don't know which course you're referring to. Our architecture courses, they all start from ground zero, but our AWS Advanced Networking, we've created a lot of prerequisites that you can do directly and completely free on our YouTube channel. And there's plenty of AWS training there, but the AWS training is the easy piece. We'll make sure that regardless of where you start, you should do well.
From Leonard, what is the job market like for the various types of architects across the globe? Are there any types that are in higher demand, Mike?
So the demand for architects is extraordinarily high. Right now, the highest demand, realistically speaking, is cloud architects and AI architects. There is a big demand for enterprise architects as well, but they always go by funny different names depending upon what they're there. But enterprise architects. But the answer to that is yes. Now, where you live will affect something. So if you live in a high cost of living area like California, what is an organization's biggest cost? It's people, right? So if you're in a place like California and you're in San Francisco where the average home is $1.5 million for like 800 square feet and for 2 bedrooms and maybe 1 bathroom, you've got to pay your people $200,000 a year, $300,000 a year to barely be able to live in a house because the expenses are so high. Which means when you have to pay somebody $100, $150 an hour, you're going to be looking for much more artificial intelligence to reduce your labor force. So as you look in high income countries, you'll see a lot more demand for the AI architect. You'll see huge demand for AI architects all over the world, but AI architects think high cost of living countries and think of organizations that are global in nature. Cloud architects are needed everywhere. So if you go to my village in Greece, you need a cloud architect. Now, would they hire an AI architect in my village in Greece? Well, there's 5,000 people in my village in Greece, think the average person in my village in Greece gets paid 20,000 euros a year. So if you think about it, AI can release people. Would you be more excited to get rid of the people that are 20,000 euros a year, or the people that are in California for the equivalent of 250,000 euros a year? So in super high cost of living areas, much more AI architect opportunities, and still extremely high number of cloud architect opportunities. In places with lower cost of labor, I think you'll see high cloud architect opportunities, but less AI architect opportunities for now. But what you see, as soon as you take something, as soon as an area starts to develop, it gets real expensive. As it gets expensive, inflation goes up, people earn more, and then companies will start to automate in these environments as well. So Leonard, it's both. But architect jobs are plentiful. Now, engineering jobs, that's another story. Engineering jobs are kind of struggling right now. See, architects are always needed. And why are architects always needed, Leonard? Because there's the customer-facing side. It takes Alonzo and I to go talk to the executives, learn about their needs, build a relationship, manage stakeholders, all this stuff that requires people. But not so for engineering. AI can write a Terraform script, a Python script, a Bash shell script, a CloudFormation script. AI can code. So a lot of what those engineers can do can be reduced, can be done by AI. Not all of it, but I'd say about a third of it. So what you're seeing in the engineering world is people in the US and the UK and Australia and Canada for the last 2 or 3 years have said, I'm not coming to the office. And the company said, come in or you won't get promoted. And they said, I'm not coming to the office either. So I think you should have noticed what has occurred. Some of these organizations have laid off people and they're hiring their engineers overseas. Amazon and Google are no longer sponsoring visas to bring engineers over. Why do they need to? If people aren't going to come to the office, they can work remotely. Why don't I hire an engineer in, I don't know, Nepatomos, Greece, Bamenda, Cameroon, Cape Town, South Africa, Lagos, Nigeria? It just doesn't matter if we're not going to come to the office. So kind of keep about that of the way I look at it. But any architect job is an extremely high demand. Cloud architects all over the world, AI architects, especially in high cost of living areas and or global companies who are looking to increase productivity, increase revenue, and decrease operating expenses all at the same time, which if you look at the CEO's official job of a publicly traded company, is to increase shareholder value. How does the CEO do that? They increase revenue dramatically, they cut operating expenses, they increase net income. And that reduces the price to earnings multiple on their stock, which rewards the shareholders, because typically it sells at a certain times the earnings based upon how excited the people are about the business. Hope I answered that question for you.
Cloud Doctor again, Mike. How do we get the requirements for an architecture?
That is a good question. You get the requirements by asking, but it's about asking the right questions. So part of being an architect, Cloud Doctor, is learning what questions to ask. Learning what normal is, learning what abnormal is, learning the dynamics of the business requirement. So I'm going to bring it back to architecture, but I'm going to, Cloud Doctor, do you know where I really learned how to be an architect? When I learned how to practice internal medicine. And I'm going to show you the difference, because we must do this as an architect. Alonzo, you just got a sore throat, okay? I'll give you a quick interview for about 5 seconds. Then we're going to switch to another problem. We're going to see how I have to answer different questions. So, Alonzo, how are you today?
Not feeling so well. My throat hurts.
Okay, Alonzo, you said, if I heard you correctly, you said your throat hurts.
It does.
Alonzo, is anything else going on?
I have a slight fever.
You have a slight fever. Okay. I noticed you have a fever on their chart. The rest of your vital signs look good. Alonzo, what makes your throat better?
Not yelling.
Not yelling. Okay.
Not drinking anything cold.
And not drinking anything cold. What makes your throat feel better?
Anything warm tea and being quiet.
Okay, so Alonzo, let's get you not to yell at anybody, and let's get you to drink some warm tea. Alonzo, can I do an exam on you?
Please.
Okay, I look at his ears, eyes, nose, throat. I listen to his heart, his lungs, and I see his throat's red, and I say, Alonzo, you have pharyngitis. And I say, Alonzo, are you allergic to any medications?
No.
Okay, Alonzo, I'm going to give you amoxicillin 500 milligrams 4 times a day. Take it for 10 days, and if you don't get better in 2 weeks, call me. Now, why did I do that, Cloud Doctor? It was a sore throat. And the architect has to do the same thing. Now, Alonzo, your shoulder is hurting you. Watch, this is going to be different. Alonzo, what brings you in today?
Been doing a lot of martial arts, and I've got a little tendonitis and bursitis in my right shoulder.
Okay, so let's get to you said you have some shoulder pain. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I understand. Did you get it diagnosed by someone to tell you it was tendonitis or bursitis? Did you have an MRI?
I went on YouTube.
Okay, sounds good. You know, I do this to myself. Lots of patients do. So let me ask you questions. Is your shoulder worse at night?
Yes, it is.
How about first thing in the morning? Does it ever wake you up at night, or was it hurt when you wake up?
Yes, it does. Wakes me up in the middle of the night, and it's sore in the morning.
Okay, Alonzo, can you lift your arms over your head for me?
No.
Okay, what happens if you try?
It hurts, and I feel a lot of burning in my shoulder area.
Alonzo, you're not in my office today, so I'd like you to put your hand on your shoulder, and I'd like you to abduct your shoulder and rotate it, and tell me if you feel any clicking.
Yes, I feel clicking and some grinding.
You feel some clicking and some grinding. What precipitated this? I heard martial arts. Was it a strike? Was it some conditioning like a bench press? Do you know when this occurred?
This has been I don't know when it occurred, but I know it's a combination of working out and a lot of strike moves.
Okay. Alonzo, do you have any medical conditions?
No.
Okay, that's good news. So are you allergic to any medications?
No.
Are you taking any medications right now?
Pain relievers, back and body, things like that to maintain the pain.
Okay. So, Alonzo, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask you to stop taking the pain relievers that you have. I'm going to order an MRI for you, which I want you to get. In the meantime, I'm going to give you Motrin 800 milligrams 4 times a day for the pain. Make sure you take it with food. I'm also going to give you some Pepcid to keep your stomach from getting upset, because I know in the past you had some stomach upset. In the meantime, stop the martial arts, stop the bench presses. If it comes back where there's no tears, you'll come back in, I'll give you a cortisone shot, you'll be good as new. Otherwise, I'll refer you to the orthopedic surgeon. So, Cloud Doctor, why did I do this? I showed you that in 2 different situations, and this is pure architecture, I had to ask 2 different sets of questions. So I hope that makes sense. So it was an architecture. Now, how do I get the requirements? I'm with client A. Client A is a big bank. Client A wants to implement a new unified communication system. And I asked client A, hi, client A, how are you? And they say, we're doing great. Client A, what are your goals for the business for the future? And they're going to tell me what their business goals are. Client A, can I examine your business processes? Of course you can. We want it to work. I've examined your business processes and I've noticed X, Y, Z things. Okay, go ask them about X, Y, Z things. Now you've got an understanding of their business. Now you ask your client, do you know what a minute of downtime costs you? You better find out, because if you don't know what their minute of downtime is, you can't even think about availability. Could you talk about any types of risk mitigation approaches you've taken with regards to cybersecurity? For example, have you done a risk analysis as an opportunity? If so, what is your annual loss expectations that you have? If you've done that, great. What is it? Have you mitigated the risk? Have you transferred the risk? Have you assumed the risk? Would you like me to create an architecture to mitigate that risk? But you're going to have to ask these questions, and you're going to have to be trained. So Cloud Doctor, all our students are trained on this. They know. But you have to be able to understand business enough to know the organization's goals. Then you have to understand technology enough to know what types of technology can impact business. Then you have to have business processes and how business operates. And then when you're armed with that, you'll know which questions to ask. Because the questions are, I want to do a migration to the cloud. How do you want to get there as fast as possible? That's easy. Move your virtual machines over as is, and you're on the cloud, and we don't even have to think about it. It's nothing. Well, Mike, I noticed we've got some issues here, here, and here. Our goals are this, this, and this. Okay, well, the systems you have aren't going to support that in the future. Yeah, we know. That's why we called you. Okay, so let's get these goals. And then you say, well, we're trying to improve this. That's going to drive you some questions. We've had a lot of network outages in the past, which caused our systems to be down. Okay, let's talk about your systems. Let's talk about your network. So that's how you get it. You're going to ask questions. And you're going to have to ask the right kinds of probing questions in exactly the same way the doctor asked the questions. And since I came from internal medicine, that's where I actually learned architecture. Because what's a doctor do? Patient comes in, they got a problem, sore throat. Doctor asks some questions, they make a diagnosis and they make a plan. Architect goes to the customer, they have a problem or a goal they're looking to solve. Architect asks some questions. Examine the patient by bringing in some engineers to baseline their systems. Make a diagnosis and a plan called an architecture. It's the same job. And that's how you do it.
Good illustration, Mike. Definitely can apply it to marketing as well. But yeah, overall, you when it comes down to architecture, you're learning a lot of fundamentals before you even get to the program because of your life skills and career experience and how it can be applicable for the role that you want. Andy, based on the cloud doctor question, how do I know I am a cloud architect student ready for the market?
Andy, it's very simple when you can actually do the job. Meaning when you can walk into a client, and I'll give you some examples, when you can ask them about their business goals, business pain points, business challenges, understand their operations, their balance sheets, their financial statements, and their business processes, then figure out a strategy to optimize their business, be able to mobilize their people, be able to re-architect those business processes, then be able to build the architecture team, design the solution, sell it back to the customer, and negotiate a deal, then you're there. Now, Andy, I can give you some very simple questions to detect right now, and I will, to test your architect knowledge. And if you join us on the webinar tomorrow in the How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar, you'll know. But Andy, let's say I asked you this. If I said, Andy, the organization's weighted average cost of capital right now is 7.37%. How would you use that information to determine if they should have a Nutanix cloud, OpenStack cloud, or use a public cloud? And you would need to know that as a competent architect because it should drive your solution. If you had someone that said, I have a mission critical low latency application that uses IP multicast and a millisecond of latency, of additional latency, could cost me $300 million this year, what could you do to minimize the latency of my business application? And you know what to do. And you understood what IP multicast is, and you understood where latency would occur and why there would be, say, far more latency moving to a cloud environment that you wouldn't have a data center. If you understood where you could reduce latency, where you could reduce latency on the switches, where you could reduce latency on the server, why going bare metal versus a hypervisor might work, why you might want to use an NVMe RAID array versus block storage, why you don't want to have a wide area network, you'd be there. Now, Andy, if I asked you how to design a secure demilitarized zone for your web application, if you said WAF and Shield, you need training. If you had said, for example, what we need to do is take a network load balancer to front end 2 next generation firewalls, and ideally we'll take another network load balancer to front end 2 next generation firewalls from a different firewall manufacturer because they use different algorithms. And then beyond that, say, take a network load balancer to front end 2 IDS IPS systems for additional security, but also for the logs, which we can use into our SIEM systems. And then you said, secure a subnet with an access control list, then take a load balancer and put a security group on that load balancer, then take your hosts and disable the unnecessary services on your host, install some endpoint protection, say some anti-malware protection, install some host-based IDS IPS systems and a host-based firewall, disable unnecessary services, I'd say, wow, you're doing great. You actually know this, and then we could keep going down the list of things that you would need to know for cybersecurity. You answered, you said you got it, so there. But that's how I would know. I would assess you and see if you can do the job, because all my students can, and that's why they do so well.
Andy, thank you for answering the question, Mike. I want to know how or when I will know I'm ready to apply for cloud architect positions after the program.
Well, Andy, in our program, we do this stuff every single day. I'm not joking. What do we do in the architecture program? In every class, we design architectures. We're not engineers. We don't train to be engineers. We're not sysadmins. We don't train to be sysadmins. In class, we design architectures. And we also do architecture projects where we'll give our students a business case. They'll hear from an executive. Our students will then create an architecture team like the real world. They would design the architecture in a team. And guess what? They have to present it to both business and technology people and get them to do it. So yes, all of my students know how to do this, and all of my students do architecture. You know, in the beginning, my students used to say, how did I know when I'd be hired? And in the beginning, I used to say to my students, when you tell me that, Mike, I'm getting bored in class, it's because I know that you're hired. Now, I know you're ready to be hired, but there's a point in your career, and I don't care what career it is, where you wake up and you just know it. And I'd say my average student is between 8 and 12 months right now, from the time they start our course to the time they know they've got it. And I'm not going to tell you that it's any easier for people with an engineering background. I've seen nurses and other great medical professionals get hired just as fast as I've seen engineers get hired. I'd say when the engineers come here, they typically have a better tech background than the others, which is good and bad. I'd say when we get medical people, for example, which is a lot of people that I work with, they come in with a very good communication skill set, a very good level of emotional intelligence, and the ability to know how to interact with people. They often get through equally fast. They typically get the more executive-y type architect positions, where the more techies tend to get the more techie positions. The executive ones typically pay more. Put that in the back of your mind, but they're all good. And you can be, Andy, you can get this job. It's not a big deal. And you'll definitely know if you're in our program.
Cloud Doctor, where do you see the role of cloud architects leading in the next 5 to 10 years, Mike?
You know, Cloud Doctor, it's interesting you ask. I had the opportunity to work as an IT futurist for the last 20-some years, and I had a chance to watch the architecture evolution. I'm one of the first architects. If you look at David Lithicum, who I have a lot of respect for, if you look at me, we were the architects before the architects even existed. Cloud Doctor, the first of us architects, we were actually called design engineers. And in those days, they'd have basically 3 teams. They'd have the implementers, which were just like the admins that would do stuff. They had the regular engineers that would plan and do stuff and still build stuff. And then they had design engineers, which would design the systems and not touch it. Now, the reason I called them design engineers, as they were, and we were called design engineers, is we were 100% focused on designing the technology. So, design engineer, super technical, very minimal business, and that was the design engineer. That was about 25 years ago. It was incredibly common. It was my first architect job. Then Cloud Doctor, right after that, we moved into the technical architect. Now, the technical architect was still an engineer. This was a techie person. This was technically a geeky person. This is someone that loved the tech. They were infatuated with tech, and they would always talk about the tech, and they were great about it. That was the technical architect. The technical architect may have actually touched the technology. And you can still see them. If you ever see someone called the technical architect, or a technical solutions architect as opposed to a solutions architect, that word technical means very deeply technical, and it also means low pay. The closer you are to the technology, the least you'll be paid. Then we got into this world of solutions architects. And the solution architect was, if you work at Cisco, you design, present, and sell Cisco stuff. You work at NVIDIA, you design, present, and sell NVIDIA stuff. You work at AWS, you design, present, and sell NVIDIA stuff. But here's the problem, Cloud Doctor, with the solution architect. It's only a single vendor. And no business only uses a single vendor, at least if they're smart, because different companies have different strengths and weaknesses. So there was that. Now, what you'll see, Cloud Doctor, is the solutions architects over time have become more businessy, and less technical. And as those solutions architects got more businessy, their salaries went up, and they went up a lot. Then you get one level more abstracted. This is at every company but AWS. And that becomes that cloud architect, which is much more like an enterprise architect. And that person is looking at the cloud. Now, what is the cloud in today's world? For 98% of organizations, it's multi-cloud. That means it's their data centers. That means it's their hosted environments, and it means their public cloud stuff. So that cloud architect got further removed from the technology, which means they can't be as technical. Now the cloud architects have gotten more and more business oriented, more and more leadership oriented, more and more business process oriented, and the pay has gone up, and it's gone up, and it's gone up dramatically. Now the good news, cloud architect, cloud doctors, architect pay is going up like a rocket ship. And here's the reason why. Organizations now have new technologies that can enable them to reduce their staff, to increase their ability to get things done, their productivity, and to reduce their costs with AI and with some of the things that were cloud. So in order to make this happen, our architects are getting more business-oriented, more business-oriented, more business-oriented, more business-oriented, and less technical, which means much higher pay. So expect to see a lot more architect jobs, especially as organizations realize the majority of the technology investments they've made have been disastrous. McKinsey estimates that 70% of all architecture projects are total disasters, meaning they do nothing for the business other than take its money away. CIO magazine, another 50+% of cloud architectures are disasters. So that's where you see the architects getting more and more businessy, further and further and further away from the technology. But the average architect doesn't touch the technology. We don't code it. We don't configure it. We don't even usually proof of concept it. I usually bring engineers to do my proof of concept for me too. So more and more and more business and many more jobs, because you have to think about it, this cloud doctor. Every new technology creates a need for a new architect. Cloud architecture is AI architecture in today's world. Look, everybody would have left the cloud and gone back to their data center if it wasn't for AI. It's about 250% more expensive, that's David Lithicum's numbers, in the public cloud than it is the data center. But now let's say AI. Where are all those GPUs located? Google has all those TPUs that they kind of embedded for their needs. So lots more cloud architect jobs all over the world, and I absolutely love it. I love getting people cloud architect jobs, and I love the role. Before we go to the next one, please ask questions if you have them. Alonzo and I want to help you in your career. If you're shy and you don't ask your questions, we can't help you. Don't be shy. I'm not a scary lion. Don't bite. I do love cats of all kinds, but I don't bite. Neither does my cat, Cindy.
You know what, Mike? Let's address Gregory. You guys are great. I was part of the program, but was unable to continue due to unforeseen circumstances with a close family member. I appreciate all the insight. First, Gregory, we hope your relative is in better health and a better situation. But also think of it this way. We are not a boot camp, so we don't start and stop. Come back home, whenever you're ready. We'll be here. Let us know what your circumstances are. If we need to give you more, give you some accessibility based off of your circumstances, but we love, the door's always open for you to come back, finish your training, get everything together, with your family situation, and resume your studies. We'll be waiting.
Yeah, Gregory, anytime you're ready, we'd love to work with you. Please take care of yourself and your family. I get it.
Tom Woe, is bash scripting is bash scripting required to become a cloud architect, Mike?
Tamo, we are architects. We are not engineers. You're not going to be allowed to touch the technology. Here's what you will use your computer for. Microsoft Word to write documents. Microsoft PowerPoint to deliver your presentations. Microsoft Excel to maybe build bills of materials, lists, project plans, those kinds of things, which you will do. And an email program. And if you're like me, you'll have either iMessage or WhatsApp on your desktop or a combination of both, so you can actually message people. Tamo, the architect role is not a hands-on role. You do not need to know how to code. You do not need to know how to configure. You need to understand how to design a solution, which is very different between knowing how to build it or knowing how to code it. First, where people get really questionable about is, the difference between designing. Designing is about systems, so systems work, which works it. The other thing to think about as a cloud architect is people think it's software. But what is the cloud, Tamwo? You're renting data center space. It's the data center. And the data center is composed of routers and switches, servers, load balancers, storage area networks like block storage, object storage, file storage, security appliances such as firewalls and IDS, IPS systems, VPN concentrators for remote access. What do you have in the cloud? Same thing. Just instead of it being there physically, it's virtualized into someone's services. So if we think about it, you don't need to code, but you do need to know the network and the data center. How would you design this? That's what we need to do. There's no hands-on. And honestly, that's where people go really wrong is they learn to code, they learn DevOps, they learn SysOps. It's the saddest thing. There's 2 certification providers out there that tell people, look, you got to get your cloud practitioner, which I would tell you to skip, don't waste your time on. Then your AWS Solutions Architect Associate, then your DevOps Associate, then your SysOps Associate, and then a Solutions Architect Professional. Well, DevOps is its own career. Development is its own career. SysOps is maintenance, which is another career. And none of it has anything to do with architecture. Architecture is designing solutions to optimize business performance. So the real key is, I'm glad you asked this, no. I'd like to invite you tomorrow on the How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar, because here's what we're going to do. We're going to go over the role. We'll go over what we do. We'll go over how you can get hired and how you can bypass HR so you don't get auto-rejected. And we will cover every skill that you need to know, both the business skills and the technical skills. And it's important for you to understand the role and the technical skills. And when we cover this, you'll be ready to go. You'll have great career skills. And then you know what to study. I'm going to give you the perfect roadmap. I've been an architect now for decades. I mean, I've trained more architects that I can think of. They work everywhere you can possibly imagine. And we're constantly getting better at this. And we're constantly speaking to the community. We're constantly speaking with executives. And that's not something we use as cloud architects. It's a great question, Tammo. If you've got some questions, please ask us. Otherwise, Alonzo and I've got a lot to do, but I can spend a few more minutes with you if you guys have questions today, and I'd be honored to do so.
Harsh, can you tell me about Transit Gateway?
Yeah, Harsh, Transit Gateway is just a virtual router. So, I mean, that's really all we're talking about. It's a reduced functionality router. So here's the thing. Anytime you want to go from point A to point B on a network, you need a router. The router determines the path calculation for you. So, if you want to go from one VPC or virtual private data center to another virtual private data center, you can just create a connection between them. No big deal. Simple, right? And that's going to ride the AWS network. Now, let's assume you had 3 VPCs. Again, no big deal. VPC A, VPC B, and VPC C, they all connect to each other in a full mesh environment, meaning everybody has a connection to everybody. Now, Harsh, where does it get complicated? Well, when we start having multiple things that need to peer with each other, they require to be fully meshed, because VPC peering is what's called not transitive. And here's what not transitive means. So let's say Alonzo's got somebody behind the scenes now, Tyrone, that he's talking to. Actually, there is a great guy, Tyrone, in South Africa sitting behind the scenes. He's part of our staff. He's an awesome cloud architect. But transitive is I tell Alonzo, and Alonzo tells Tyrone about a route. Tyrone goes through Alonzo to me, and we have a conversation. That's simple. Non-transitive, which is the way VPC peering works, which is also the way IBGP works in networking, is I tell Alonzo something. He does not tell Tyrone. And because he doesn't tell Tyrone, Tyrone doesn't know about it. Now, because he doesn't do that, he doesn't know how to reach me through Alonzo. So that's transitive versus non-transitive. So when we're in the cloud, we have to fully mesh things because it's the VPC peering is non-transitive. So that means if we have 2, no big deal, we need 1 connection. If we have 3, we need 3 connections. But the formula is n times n minus 1 divided by 2. So let's say I have 10 VPCs that I want to connect to each other. It's 10 times 10 minus 1, which is 9. So that's 90 divided by 2. That's 45 VPC peering connections. Imagine if I had 1,000. 1,000 times 1,000 minus 1, 999 divided by 2. So what we've done in networking is we created a route reflector. And what the route reflector says, break the rules of transitive routing. I connect to Alonzo. Alonzo connects to Tyrone. And Tyrone learns everything through me. And I learn everything through Tyrone. Now, Chris wants to connect to Alonzo. Alonzo can connect to Tyrone and Chris together through each other. And I can connect to Chris or Tyrone because it's transit. So that's transitive versus non-transitive. So Transit Gateway and Cloud Hub enable you to just break the rules of transitive and non-transitive routing. Where did Transit Gateway come from? About 30 years ago, we came up with the concept of the BGP route reflector to solve that same problem. And Cloud Hub and AWS Transit Gateway do the same thing. Now, where are the differences? AWS Cloud Hub only works with VPNs. But what if you've got private lines or another form of connection? That's where Transit Gateway does. Plus, Transit Gateway actually has more routing opportunities in there because it's basically a watered down router. So that's all you need to know about Transit Gateway. But Harsh, we're going to get very deep into Transit Gateway. I got Mo, I'm pretty sure it's Mo. It could be Benedict that actually did it, but they were showing me their transit gateway slides and all their demos, and it was really cool stuff. So come join us in the completely free AWS Advanced Networking Bootcamp. We'll have some fun with it. We'll get geeky with it, and we'll have lots and lots of stuff. If you've got some questions, ask them. Otherwise, Alonzo and I are going to go back to work. He and I were collaborating on something before this call, but we can have a few more minutes. See, Peterson's here. Peterson, it's always good to see you. Looking forward to seeing you in the next AI class. I'm sorry, Enterprise Architect.
Hi, Mike and Alonzo. I am excited about our upcoming Enterprise Architect live class. See you there.
Peterson, I am very excited to see you in this next upcoming Enterprise Architecture class. I actually asked you to actually demo the solution or design the solution. You and I had the opportunity to speak about it. Peterson is an expert on voice and video and unified communications architectures. So very sharp guy, and we're so happy to be working with you, Peterson.
Definitely.
And you live not too far away from me, which is even better. One day we're going to have to meet up in person. Well, I don't see any questions. So if there's no questions, Alonzo and I are going to get back to work. So I'll go. So I want to tell you about the last couple of things. Tomorrow, we have our completely free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. And we'll go over the role, what we do as architects, how to get hired, how to skip HR so they don't know how to reject you, the skills that we need to know. And then we'll have 90 minutes on Zoom, and you can ask any question you want. So you can build your best cloud architect career, enterprise architecture career, AI architecture career. We'll do anything we can. We can assess you. We can test you. It'll be fun. Plus, it's on Zoom. You get to meet new people. And then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, from 10 a.m. Eastern to 6 p.m. at night, we're going to have our completely free AWS Advanced Networking Bootcamp. Got a stack of network professionals to teach this for you. People that have lived, eathed, and breathed and slept networks for years. 3 of us are CCIEs, and I got to tell you, anybody that knows what goes into that knows it's like a whole lifetime for a long period of time to pass that thing and do that thing. Yeah. But we love it. It's terrific, and networking is super fun. So see you all tomorrow, and then see the rest of you on Friday, or see you in both cases.